Hello and welcome to our brand new training series. This is the Welcome series. This is introductory level technical training. It's open to everybody. It's free of charge, including the certification exam and the badge you get at the end of the training. We'll tell you more about that shortly. If you're one of our customers, then welcome to you. If you're thinking about becoming a customer, welcome. If you are a distributor or an Extreme partner, welcome to you. Or if you're an Extreme employee, or you're thinking about becoming an employee, welcome to you as well. There's 6 episodes in this series. It's going to be about 1 hour per week in YouTube. We're coming to you live right now. I just want you to know that all of the episodes are going to be in a playlist. They'll appear in the playlist straight after the live stream. So if you have to step away, you miss something, or you miss an episode, then don't worry. You just jump into our YouTube channel and you'll be able to catch up. Now, in the Welcome series, we introduce you to members of our family. In this one, you're going to meet ExtremeCloud IQ. And before we get into the training, I just want you to meet some more people. So let's meet some of the team. Now, I'm just looking down. Isaac is the instructor. So Isaac looks like he's getting ready. I'll tell you a little bit more about Isaac in a moment if you haven't met him already. The other team members, part of the Extreme team, are going to help you and they're going to run the stream and run the training here on YouTube is Bethany and Claire. So I'll come to Bethany first. Now Bethany, we're doing a welcome. I've got a teapot here. When people come to my house, I live in the UK, we typically make tea. That's what we do. We get the best biscuits out. What about you? What do you do to welcome people into your home?
Yeah, well, I'd usually love to do the same thing. A good cup of tea and a biscuit, but at the moment it's a bit of a building site. So still plenty of tea, but people are welcome through the utility as the kitchen's getting knocked down. So still welcoming, I promise.
Okay. All right. Well, Bethany, tell us about the certification exam. How are people going to get the badge?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the end of the 6 episodes, the end of the 6 weeks, we will give you more information on how you can access the online exam, which will be around 40 questions, 40 multiple choice questions. And again, free online. Once you pass that exam, you will receive a digital badge, which you can share on LinkedIn, social media, your CV, and we can celebrate with you. The one thing that we're doing a little bit differently this time is that at the end of each episode, we will be sharing a slide that has multiple questions on that will appear in the exam. The reason for this is it will give you a chance to learn ahead of time and focus you during the learning. So get ready to screenshot them and we'll give you more information at the end of episode 6 on how to access the exam.
Love that. I love that new development. So just to clarify, you're going to see the questions from the pool of questions, not the answers, right, Bethany?
No
We're not
chance.
sharing the answers with people, are we?
And we'll be nice, but no, not the answers.
Okay, you got to watch the training to get the answers. Yeah. Okay, thank you, Bethany. Next, bring in Claire. Claire, you out there?
Hi, Rowan, Bethany, Isaac, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for having me.
Now, how do you welcome people into your home, Claire?
Well, I'm really glad you went to Bethany first because it gave me a chance to switch out my bottle of wine for my coffee cup. I was very aware that wasn't very professional. So yes, I mean, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, right? Isn't that a saying?
Yeah, it's only 2 o'clock here, Claire. Good. Good spot.
Well, we're broadcasting all over the world, right? So I'm going to put my head in different time zones.
And we're filming at Claire's house next time, just to be clear.
Yeah, welcome to everyone.
Great idea. Claire, how do people get help? How can they interact with the Extreme team? How can they ask questions?
Sure. So, I mean, if you've joined any of our Extreme training courses before on YouTube, you will know that obviously we are live, as Rowan said. So you can jump in to the live chat. The Extreme team are there to answer all of your questions. If you are watching on demand, again, we have comments down below. So please share any thoughts or questions down in our comments. Again, Extreme team are there to help and answer. And if you have more of an in-depth question or you don't want to post it on YouTube, then please feel free to email us on learnextremenetworks.com. Sorry, get my words out. So we've got multiple channels of communication out to you guys of how you can ask questions, and you're watching on YouTube, so remember to subscribe, like our channel, and hit the notification bell so you will get up to date notifications on when we're sharing things. So that's it from me.
Thank you, Claire. One more thing just to let everybody know, especially if you're watching on demand, you can turn on the subtitles. So you could have English subtitles on screen while you're watching the training. You can also, in YouTube, have multilingual subtitles. You can choose whichever language you want. You probably know that already. So make use of that. We just wanted to call that out because we're backing a cause right now, which is called Turn on the Subtitles. And when you have the subtitles on, it really helps you learn. And it helps you develop your reading skills. Now we wanted to mention this because we're not, you can read, you can follow the training, but in most parts of the world, childhood literacy is a problem, and we're backing the cause called Turn the Subtitles On because it helps children develop reading skills. So we want to share that with you because we want to encourage you to share that with other people and get kids that you know and get family members, anybody you know, to try and spread the word. I think the team are going to put up a URL just so you can go and read about that if you want, but pass that on, turn on the subtitles, and they may help you as well. Okay, right, I'm just looking at the clock. We're ready to get going. I can see Isaac's just about ready. So you'll know Isaac already if you've joined our Extreme Academy training. We've got Isaac a new t-shirt for the welcome series. I'm not sure if he's going to be wearing his hat this time. He does wear hats inside from time to time. Isaac is our lead curriculum developer here in the Extreme training team, and he's the teacher who teaches the teachers. So you're going to get an expert explaining to you the who, the what, the why of technology. Isaac's got a passion for the technology. He loves teaching. I think you're going to enjoy the next 6 weeks with us here in the Welcome Series. So team, if you're look like we're ready to go. So let's switch over the stream to Isaac. I'm going to jump on the chat with Bethany and Claire. Hope you enjoy it.
Thank you so much for that introduction. I love teaching. And I hope that in this series, this welcome series, that you will join me for these next 6 episodes and get a really good understanding of the topics that we're going to be talking about. As mentioned previously, I'm going to introduce you to ExtremeCloud IQ. That's my job. Throughout the series, you're going to be meeting ExtremeCloud IQ. Sometimes you'll hear me refer to it as XIQ, but if you do, that's what it means, ExtremeCloud IQ. So feel welcome, sit back, relax. This is not a heavy go teaching session. This is friends talking. This is friends engaging. In my mind, I'm seeing a braai. For those of you who don't know from the US, a braai is what in South Africa what you would call a barbecue. So we get around the fire with friends and we sit and we talk and we chat about life, we do stuff, and this is what this welcome series all about. That's the spirit of the series. So come and join me on this journey. Like I said, we're here to meet ExtremeCloud IQ. Now, before I get into teaching, let's just go through a few things. I have a tablet right in front of you on my desk, and I have a screen in front of me, and I got a camera in front of that screen and microphones off left and right and keyboards and stuff. So occasionally you're going to see me looking around, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I just have to get all these bits and pieces of the technology working really well. So let me see that my recording is working perfectly. That's all set up. Looks like we're really good to go. Okay, so let me show you what the initial parts of these, what I call separator slides. And what that is the following. As I go through these different modules with you, as I cover these modules with you, we will, when we get to a new module, we will bring up a slide that looks something like this. And in the slide, I want to just point out a few things over here because it's an easy reference for you. So over here will be the title of what we're going to be covering in this module. And up here will be a short description. So the slide will stay up on screen for a few seconds to give you enough time to kind of read what this is all about. So here we're saying everyone is talking about the cloud, but what's all the fuss about and why should I be bothered? Right? It's a good question. So that's where you see a brief description about the module that we're going to be covering in this in this particular episode. Then underneath that, you're going to see the amount of slides in this section. And I've always found it quite frustrating when I sit through a presentation and there's no indication of how many slides this presentation is. If it's, 10 slides or 500 slides. So you never quite know where you are. So I thought, I've got to do something a little bit different. So when you see this, okay, Isaac's going to be covering eight slides, within this module. So help you to settle it in your head where we are. The next part is something also that I haven't seen, and this was quite it caused a lot of consternation when I introduced this into this module, and that is focus level. Now that over there, for those of you who go to gym, you would know that as a barbell, right? It's something that you pick up to build muscle. Now why did I put that there, and why did I say focus level? And let me explain what I'm trying to achieve over here. I think most of us who watch this content are quite aware and live in a world that is not single focus, okay? So you might have taken time out from your day. So you might be watching this live, as there are a whole lot of people here, or you might be watching this on demand, but you've taken some time to sit and watch to learn. But if you're anything like me and you have a mobile device, then, or a tablet or something like that, you're listening to me or watching me, and if someone pings you, you go check your phone, you check Instagram, or you check a WhatsApp message, or maybe an email from work, you look at the subject, and sometimes you need to read. So we live in a world where we have lots of different things that are calling for our attention all the time. And when I used to teach in a face-to-face environment, I would always tell the class, look, I understand that you're sitting in my class at the moment, but your job doesn't stop when you're sitting inside here. For most of you, when you're here, your email continues to go through. People keep sending you messages. There's crisis at work. There's things that happen. Some are expected, some are unexpected. And so I understand that your life goes on. All I used to say to those people, all I ask is that if you have a phone call, then please step outside, take the call so you don't disturb the rest of the class, and come back in. So that's kind of how I used to do it. In a virtual environment, I know that you guys are watching, but I can't really see you. And if you take a call, it's not going to disturb anybody else. And so we're kind of aware of that. But what this focus means is that it's not, oh, I can ignore this because there's only one barbell, because you'll see some of them got one, others got two, and others have got three. What that really means is when you see this, if it's got one barbell, it says, hey, you know what? If somebody, sends you a WhatsApp message, or you see an email from your boss, go for it. It's okay. It's not a big deal. But when you see the one with three, that means, hey, this stuff, you really need to give me all your brain cycles. Every clock cycle in your brain, you need to turn your phone off or put it on silent, put it aside. It's not for hours. It's just for, the amount of slides and the time that this thing says. Just put it down and focus, because this stuff is really important for you and it needs all your attention. Are we cool on that? Okay. And then the last one is the most difficult one for me, right? I'm going to try and fit it. I've kind of, when I rehearsed this and I went through this, I kind of like, okay, 15 minutes should be enough to cover this particular section. So I give you a slide and I give you the amount of time that this should take, more or less. I try. It's not always perfect. But if we're good to go, then let me set my timer over here, and then we can get going. So let's set this custom, and let's go around 15 minutes on this one, starting now. Okay, so cloud. What is cloud all about? Now, even before I go into start teaching this, let me just say the following. This series is going to build off a base that says, I assume nothing. I assume nothing. Now, some of you, if you're watching this series and you are, Amazon experts in the cloud, and you know orchestration, and you know all of these things, this series might not be for you. Okay, this series might not be for you. But I have spoken to people, to friends of mine, to family, and when I talk about clouds and I use the language that is so natural to me, sometimes I see people like, okay, I've heard about cloud. I use a iPhone. I know, iCloud or something like that. But wow, I didn't even know that Amazon had a business that is Amazon Web Services that actually sell cloud. So inevitably it leads to the question, can you explain cloud? What is cloud? When we talk about cloud, what is it? What is it that you are referring to? And this is what I'm going to be trying to answer over here is, what is cloud all about? Well, I guess a good way to think about that is with this definition over here: the hardware and the operating environment of a server in an internet-based data center. Okay, let's make it even easier. Cloud is essentially someone else's computers on someone else's and somebody else's infrastructure. Someone else's computers and somebody else's infrastructure. Traditionally, customers, big companies, would buy servers, big computers, big powerful computers, to do the heavy lifting that they needed to in their business. It could be SAP, and a financial system, CAD. It could be so many different things. And they would buy all of this equipment, these big servers, expensive servers, to handle these loads. Now, I've worked in companies. I used to own my own company before, and oftentimes when the end of the month would come, it would be really critical for my customers because they needed to get out their financials, the invoices, the statements, all of those types of things. So their servers would be particularly busy over a period of time, the ones that they had designated for the financial stuff. But the rest of the month, they weren't really that busy. Those servers were not really that busy. But of course, when you spec'd it out, you needed to spec it out for when it was very busy. Yeah, it made sense. So you could say, in essence, that you bought this machinery, you put it down, but in essence, you only really used 30-40% of the capacity of that for a couple of days. The rest of the time, the server was sitting there, doing some, knitting, doing nothing, sitting there, not even being utilized properly. So you could say you're paying a lot of money for very little computing power. The idea of cloud is that instead of you owning this computing power and having a special server room and having a lot of power, going into here to power all of this equipment, cloud kind of changed that to the point where it said, instead of you owning all that infrastructure and using it, but just for a short period of time, what if another company, yes, another company, if we go back here, someone else's computer, what if another company had a whole lot of computers running on their own infrastructure, not yours, and you used your internet connection to plug into all that power. And so you only paid for the amount of computing power that you needed, right? So when you were very busy at that end of month period, you needed a lot of computing power. Well, you only paid for that much that you needed. Once you'd use that, then it would come down again. So you wouldn't be paying for stuff that you didn't need. And it kind of made so much sense for us to go in that particular direction. Now, it's 2021 today. And if you think about this, if you had proposed that to somebody, say 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, they would have said to you, oh, that's crazy. That will never cloud. Somebody who's taking my stuff and putting it on someone else, that wouldn't. What about security? What about this? What about that? What about the internet part? They would have given you 1,000 reasons why it shouldn't or it couldn't be done. But here we are, 2021, and the world has moved to cloud. Today it's the opposite. We can't even think anymore of a world where we don't use someone else's infrastructure and somebody else's computer. Now, cloud, Amazon, a lot of people, when you ask them about Amazon, some friends, my own friends who know that I'm in tech and know a little bit about tech, to them, Amazon is a place where they buy stuff and get it delivered next day or next couple of days, right? That's what they think. And when you tell them that Amazon today is the world leader in cloud computing, using something they call Amazon Web Services, people are like, wow, really? But this is the reality. And ExtremeCloud IQ, the product that we're going to be discussing today, is principally built on top of Amazon Web Services. So Amazon Cloud. Remember, someone else's computers on someone else's infrastructure. That is cloud. But Amazon are not the only big players in this. There's 3 big players in this space. So you have your Amazon, you have your Microsoft Azure. They are a really, really big player in this area of cloud. And of course, you also have the other big giant, which is Google, right? Google Cloud. Big players. Now, are they the only 3? No, not at all. Not at all. There's many others. But these are the big boys, right? These are the really big players. Think about it like an operating system, right? If I said to you, what are the top 3 or 4 operating systems in the world today? You would say something like, oh, it's Windows, Microsoft Windows, definitely Linux, and definitely Apple. And if it's on mobile, well, it would be iOS and Android. Kind of. Are there others? Yes, of course there's others, but those are the really, really big players. Now, one of those very attractive options that we spoke about was this ability for cloud. Why so popular? Well, this is one of those big things, is that you scale on demand. When you need the computing power is there, you pay for that, and when you don't need it, it comes down again, and you pay less. That's fantastic. From ecological point of view, from financial point of view, it just makes sense on so many levels. You will have heard, or you might have heard, people talk about reliability in terms of computing, right? And they would say things like, this computer is ultra reliable, uber reliable. When they talk about cloud, they would use this term 11 nines. Okay, well, how did we get to 11 nines? Well, we didn't start with 11 nines. There was nothing as reliable as 11 nines. So we would say things like, this system will guarantee that your systems will be up 99.99% of the time. And that sounds fantastic, right? If you work out 99% of 99.99% of a year, you're going to get a particular figure, right? But if you're a massive online retailer, is 99.99% enough? Then they thought, well, maybe we need 99.999% because that's much better, right? yeah, that's much. What if we had 99.999999999, and they got to this ridiculous number of 11 nines, to not say 100%, 99.99999, whatever that is. And they spoke about that in terms of reliability. How much data would you lose if something went wrong under this? Well, with 11 nines, if you had 11 nines of reliability in terms of data, in terms of your data, that would mean that you would lose one file every 659,000. Okay, ridiculous, right? Or in downtime, 0.0003 seconds per year. Oh, come on, come on. That's today. When we talk about ExtremeCloud IQ, we don't even use this in our marketing speak. We don't even say, oh, our cloud is 90. It's like, don't even bother. I mean, what's the point? It's insignificant. It doesn't mean anything. Today, ExtremeCloud IQ is just up all the time. And I'm going to show you as we go through why it's built like that and why it works up like that. But let's continue going about what is the cloud all about? So we talked about this concept of scaling up and scaling down on demand as you need it. The other thing is simplicity, right? It frees up IT teams. Today, if you have an IT team working for you, these guys are busy with security issues. They're busy with patching issues. They're busy with upgrading issues. They're busy with usernames. They're busy with so many different things, looking after hardware, adding RAM, doing this, doing that. Well, when you put your infrastructure in the cloud, it frees up the IT teams often to do the stuff that's really important instead of worrying about this little thing and that little thing and that server that need, hey, someone else's computers, someone else's infrastructure. They worry about those things. They worry about hard drives. They worry about backup. You IT teams don't need to worry about those things. So it frees up capacity for your IT teams to focus on the stuff that's really important. Accessibility from anywhere, right? Anywhere, wherever. You don't need VPNs. You don't need all of this. You just need a connection to the internet, and you can get to this infrastructure, be it on Azure, on Google Cloud, be it on Amazon. Think about a service like Gmail. Most of you watching this will probably have a Gmail account, right? When last were you not able to get to Gmail if your internet connection was working? It's like, it's always there. It's always there, and it doesn't matter where you are. You could be in Chile or China. You could be in Hungary or the Hoover Dam. It doesn't matter. You can get access to it. So these things are simplicity. They make it simple for you to be able to get this anywhere, anytime. You've never been able to go to Gmail to go check your Gmail, and it will say to you, sorry, we only operate between the hours of 8 and 6 o'clock in the evening. If you want to check your email, please come tomorrow. That doesn't exist. In a cloud environment, it's always there. The next one is something that financial people really enjoy. And there might be some financial people watching this stuff, right? You pay a fixed amount, for example, for all of this hardware that you're hardly using. You're only using once a month over 2 or 3 days. The rest of the time you're not using that. Yes, okay, you're paying, for all this. You've budgeted for all of this capital expenditure. But when you use cloud, there is no capex. Right? You're not buying equipment. You're not putting money into boxes that are going to depreciate. That is removed from that equation. And for a lot of financial people, that is absolute gold. The fact that you don't have to have big capex spend on your IT infrastructure. Okay. And then, of course, speed. Speed. I know people will say, well, it's great if your internet connection is really fantastic. But if it isn't, not so good, right? Today, around the world, you don't need 100 megabit connection to the internet to be able to get great speed. You really don't. But what else is there about speed? It's not just connection, right? It's more than that. Think about updates. The days of new features twice a year are long gone, right? Do you remember those days when we used to buy boxed versions of Microsoft Office and boxed versions of Corel Draw and boxed versions of this and that, and once a year there would be an update and everybody would go and buy the latest version and update it, and all of that. Those days are gone. Innovation, new features twice a year. Oh, come on, those days are gone. Cloud enables you, gives you the ability to have a platform. Okay, it's 15 months, we're nearly there. Cloud enables you to have development and new features all the time. They just come through all the time. Think about apps like Instagram or WhatsApp. You don't have to wait a year for them to put a new feature in place. Every now and then, there's a new update. There's a new update. And it's just, you install it on your mobile device, whatever, and it's just there. So cloud enables this development cycle to speed up along much faster than previously. And in ExtremeCloud IQ, if you snooze, you've missed the updates, right? Because there's always new updates coming every month. We put out new updates, new features, new this, new that. In ExtremeCloud IQ, innovation is not a feature. In ExtremeCloud IQ, speed is not a feature. In cloud and in ExtremeCloud IQ, innovation and speed are everything. Right? It's not just something that you do. It is everything. Every month there's new features, new updates, new this, new that, new abilities for this to talk, for that device, for a switch to talk, for an AP. It is fantastic what cloud enables. So it is simplicity, it is speed, and it's 24, it's all of those things, but it also allows this really very quick development cycle, rapid deployment, continual updates. So you can deploy very, very quickly, and you can have continual updates, right? Imagine in Microsoft in the days gone by when a new version of Office came out and they had to send you those, remember those boxes that had a big fat manual in it, and then, one CD or 20 floppy disks or something? Do you remember those days? Imagine how long it took them to print all of that material and ship it in massive containers to the world before they absolutely were able to release those updated versions. It used to take months to do that. With cloud, it's instant. So speed, all of these other features that we spoke about, they are just part of cloud. They are almost seamless. So I hope, as we come into land, I hope that this gives you a better idea about cloud. Someone else's infrastructure, someone else's computers running somewhere. All you need is a pipe and you get all of these benefits: scalability, time, speed of development. Fantastic. I hope you've enjoyed that piece. Right, now we're going to go into here and you're going to be reading whatever is on there, and then we'll jump straight in. Okay, so let's go. Architecture. ExtremeCloud IQ is our network management solution. This term, network management solution, you'll often see abbreviated NMS, Network Management Solution. This is not our invention. Other companies have this as well. Network Management Solution is just a name. It's just an agnostic name. It doesn't belong to anybody. It just describes something, a way, a manner to manage a network. In our case, we describe it as a cloud network management solution. Why? Because of the previous model that we said, where we said our ExtremeCloud IQ is built in the cloud using someone else's computers and someone else's infrastructure on someone else's infrastructure. So once we get that network management solution, it's very self-explanatory. The management of a network. Companies, small and large, need to manage their network, their switches, their network devices, their access points, etc. All those things, security cameras, CCTVs, fingerprint readers, all of that stuff. They need to manage their network. ExtremeCloud IQ, this is what it is. Now, not only do we provide a network management solution, we also provide what we call APIs, all right? APIs. Now, what are APIs? You might have heard this term used extensively or in conversations, especially with programmers, people who code. It stands for Application Programming Interface. And the best explanation that I can think of is, think of a toolbox. I in my garage, I have a toolbox, and in it I have screwdrivers, flat, star, I have hammer, pliers, I've got all sorts of little, wire strippers and things like that. I've got all sorts of things in my toolbox, and that gives me the ability for me to do all sorts of different jobs, right? I mean, I can use that to create a something, to fix something, the tools give me the variety of things that I can create. For people who code, who write code, when a company says we make our APIs available, it means you have an application and then you give customers the tools from a toolbox that they can go in and they can create whatever they need to create custom applications, right? And we have that. We have customers who use the APIs to go and create their own specific customer applications that connect back to ExtremeCloud IQ. It's really neat. And APIs, for a long time, were kind of, they were there, but now, recently, they've just taken APIs to a complete different level. It's now really extremely powerful, and you can do incredible things using those APIs. So ExtremeCloud IQ is this architecture where we have a solution, this network management solution with the fancy GUI and all sorts of things that you access using a browser or even on a mobile device. But if that's not enough for you, you want something else, we also provide you the APIs that allow you to get hooks into the system and create your own stuff. It's also, ExtremeCloud IQ is also a big data platform from which we can launch things like AI, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. Now, that's really important because think about Formula One. For our friends in America, perhaps NASCAR. 20 years ago, Formula One was about mechanics, engineering, mechanical engineering, and a whole team of engineers, mechanics who actually fix it, people who change tires and stuff like that, and a really good driver. That was Formula One. And the best driver in the best car with the best mechanics generally won. But then they started to introduce telemetry into the equation and putting all sorts of sensors, hundreds maybe, inside these Formula One cars or NASCARs. And now, whenever they show you a Formula One race, you always see, the pit lanes, and you see all the mechanics and the guys dressed with these fancy helmets, waiting to change a tire in 3 seconds, and the car's out and refuel it and all of this. And you see the mechanics as well. When something goes wrong, the mechanic comes in and the mechanic, change all of that. But you'll always see some team principal or some guy or a bunch of guys sitting behind a whole bank of computers, and they're watching all the telemetry coming off of those cars. And that's how they make the decisions, based not on maybe we should bring our driver in 3 laps time. Now they know that in 3 laps time the car will have X amount of fuel, the tire wear will be X amount, it's time to bring in that car now, because otherwise they're going to, so they are proactive. Why does that work? Because they can now make decisions based on real-time data. And when you have an application like ExtremeCloud IQ that sees on a daily basis, maybe 1.5 million devices, from access points, switches, all of those. Imagine that, 1.5 million devices, and each one like a Formula One car telling ExtremeCloud IQ, on this port connection's good, that port connection's good, on this AP, this antenna, there's a problem over here, there's too many, I'm having issues here. Imagine those thousands and thousands and thousands and millions of data points all talking to ExtremeCloud IQ. Now you can make better decisions. Now it's not, oh, our network's not working properly. Now you know exactly the access point on the second floor in that cabinet over there has a heating problem, because we can see that the variable, the temperature is above average for every other access point. So you see how by having a big data application, it gives you much better information. Right now, that doesn't mean that all of our customers are on cloud. Of course not. Some, for laws, for reasons they're not ready to move to the cloud yet, can have this type of management locally on-prem. I mean, that happens, and we're going to cover that later. But it's just to give you an idea when we talk about AI and ML, artificial intelligence and machine learning, that the more data points you have, the more you can learn about anomalies, the more you can learn about what's normal and what isn't normal, and that empowers you to make better decisions, for sure. Right, now, architecture. Just like a building will have foundations, steelwork, it will have electrical system and a plumbing system, ExtremeCloud IQ has the same thing. We have these 2 main components, if you want to call them that. Yeah, that's a good term. They're called the Global Data Center, GDC, and the Regional Data Center, Global and the Regional. And each one of those does slightly different jobs, right? So the Global Data Center is where you do things like managing administrator and customer accounts. Now think about that. What does that mean? You're watching this and you think, you know what, this technology sounds good. I think we should move to cloud. Go get hold of a partner of Extreme Networks and let's sign up. When you do that sign up process, what's going to end up happening is you're going to sign up an account with us. That account for yourcompany.com or whatever it is going to be created in the Global Data Center. That's where it's going to be done. Other things that happen on the Global Data Center are IQ Engine and IQ Engine admin image distribution. Now, these images that we're talking about here, they are not images as you find, like a photograph. That's not the images we're talking about here. Let me think of an example. Apple recently released iOS 15, okay, their latest operating system. They made it available to maybe 1 billion devices all over the world. Now, that device, that software that iOS 15 is released as a file, but they don't refer to it as a file. They refer to it as iOS 15 image. The terminology is an image. It's an image, right? A data image. And that image is distributed when there is an updated image for all these devices. For example, for the operating system, which is called IQ Engine, that runs on access points, for example, or switches. When there's an update for them, that comes from the global data center. Also, the sign-on and the landing page. I'll show you that URL. When you go to that page to sign in to manage your account, that page is hosted on the global data center. Make sense? When you finish your session and you log out, that landing page or that that page actually, that is held on the global data center. Right. The next one, the next section is the regional data center. Okay, the regional data center. And this one is where all tasks related to network devices, client information, application visibility. So for example, if you've now signed up to ExtremeCloud IQ and you've got a whole lot of, 100 switches or, 500 access points, and you want to know what devices are connecting on my network. I mean, how many mobile devices are versus computers? How many devices are running iOS versus running Android? If you want to see that device, those network devices, the switches, how they configured, it will be on the regional data center. If you want to see client information about, when we say client, what we mean is devices. Generally, we mean devices, end devices, computers, mobile tablets, CCT devices that that are connected into your net. That type of stuff. That's what we want to see, and we want to see the metadata associated with that. That's on a regional data center. That's where we see that. Application visibility. What are my users using? Are they using Facebook? Are they not? Are they using Microsoft Office 365? That's the type of stuff that we're talking about. Now remember, we're not checking your bank accounts. We're not checking what's the account number. That's got nothing to do with that. That's your business. We're looking at metadata. Think about that Formula One car. The data that's coming off the tires, that data that's coming off the exhaust, the data that's coming off the engine, the data that's the stuff that we are talking about. Now this map, already I know that this is out of date, because I recently saw on one of the internal emails that because of the UK leaving Europe, we now have a data center in London. Excuse me. So the dark ones over here show you the data centers around the world. Now this is already quite old. Like I say, there's newer ones. So you see regional data centers: Tokyo, Seoul, Sydney, Mumbai, Frankfurt, Virginia, Sao Paulo. Plenty data centers and growing all the time. So this is not a static map. This is updating all the time. And why is this? Why are regional data centers important? Well, they are important because of laws. Right? Laws, government laws. Now, for those of you living in Europe, you would have heard for sure of something called the GDPR. The GDPR says that if you want to do business with a company in Europe, where the customers are based in Europe, then the data that you store about those customers needs to live in Europe. Now, how does that tie up with cloud? Because a cloud is someone else's computers on someone else's infrastructure. But those computers are not actually sitting in a cloud. They might be in a basement, or they might be in a big data center, right? Physically located. So GDPR says those have to be in Europe. End of. And other countries around the world are that are non-European, are starting to do the same types of things to protect the people, the data, where the data is stored. Now, Germany, for example, goes one step further. Germany says, if you want to do business in Germany, the data not only has to be stored in Europe, but it actually, if it's to do with German citizens, the data has to be stored in Germany. That's where the data has to be stored. So the data is stored in German data centers, right? So we do this because of data residency, where the data needs to live. So now we understand, okay, an account is created on the global data center, but the data points, those metadata points, the management of my network, all those, that is stored regionally according to the laws of the regions and the country. Is that okay? Okay. So now I'm going to take a little break on here, and we're going to talk about monolithic versus microservices, and monolithic services versus microservices. And Marcus Burton and G.T. Hill are two brilliant engineers that we have at Extreme, and they created a series of videos where they explain really easily, very clearly, what these microservices are, these different types of technologies that we use. And I thought, you know what, instead of me redoing the whole explanation, this is so good, so clear, I'm going to let them do it. So for the next 11 minutes or so, let's watch this video, and it will give us a really good exit point as to the architecture with which we build, not only how it's located and structured for legal compliance and performance issues, but let's focus on services and what this concept means. This will help us really understand the architecture and what makes ExtremeCloud IQ so powerful and why so many customers love the application. So
hey everyone out there, this is GT Hill.
Hey, I'm Marcus Burton.
I love hearing Marcus Burton's voice. Our job, Marcus and I got together and said, hey, let's make some videos on difficult technical topics, but try to make them maybe a little bit easier to understand. The first one we're jumping into is microservices. You hear microservices talked about quite a bit out there. It's a cool thing to understand. So we're going to try to simplify this. I'm going to start by talking, I'm going to do the analogy, right? So we're going to talk analogy first. Imagine you take a pair of earbuds. You're listening to your favorite song. You pull them out. You gently set them on the desk. The next time you go to touch them, they are instantly tangled up. That's just one pair of earbuds. And it's a phenomenon that no one really understands. But this is what happens. Now imagine doing that with 20 earbuds. All of them get tangled up. It's a spaghetti of a mess. That is an analogy for the problem that exists today in programming. So Marcus, tell us, and we're going to keep going here, but Marcus, you tell us this microservices thing in a nutshell, what is it doing to fix that problem?
Yeah, I love that analogy, that picture, because it's exactly the problem that microservices solves in software. And so at its simplest level, microservices is basically a software design technique or a software organization technique where you have an application that's made up of many component parts, and you basically take that application software and you break it down such that instead of being composed of one sort of monolithic block of code, you basically are going to break it down into component services or parts that then can interact with each other, but they can be segmented and sort of then loosely coupled together into one application. You know, one way to think of it, actually, have you done any coding?
Yeah, a little bit. When I was 8 years old, with my TI 99 4A, I would do a little bit of programming, and it was that, if I had a lot of time on my hands, it would end up being literally thousands of lines of code to play it, what I felt like was a really simple game.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so, thousands of lines of code, can get messy. And then, once it expands beyond 1,000 lines of code, let's say that while you're writing those lines of code, you find that you wrote a really nice function or a really nice piece of software, and you found a bunch of different leverage points within your application to reuse that software. And so you do. And then over the course of a year or multiple years, you add new features and functions, and they start to sort of integrate together. And they all rely on some of these core pieces, but you find over time that these features need to evolve and change, based on sort of market requirements as the world moves. But you can't change the underlying. That's like a daytime soap opera, As the World Moves. I think that's what it's called.
It's As the World Turns.
As features.
I'm
that's
sad
what it
to
is.
tell you that I know that one.
But as I was just trying to catch you there, in a moment of weakness and embarrassment. As features change and they want the underlying pieces to change with it, you can't change the underlying pieces because you have too many different dependencies. And you have this sort of gridlock that happens within software where it's like, we want feature C to evolve, but it requires the functions or the underlying pieces of code to evolve before it can. But features A and B can't change. They must stay the way that they are, but you've started to integrate and reuse, and it just becomes this, I mean, spaghetti, it becomes a spaghettied mess.
So the idea, again, not to beat the earbud thing to death here, but we're really separating all those earbuds out. We don't ever set them on the desk next to each other because we know that they'll somehow come together.
Right.
And intertwine. Yeah. And we want to be able to affect one piece of code, like one earbud. We want to be able to affect one of those at a time without everybody else being affected. I mean, I think that's the goal. If I'm understanding you correctly.
Yeah, I mean, the goal of microservices is to break, let's just say in an ideal world, you break down an application into pieces that are small enough for a small team. If you've heard the phrase 2 pizza box teams, it's a team that's big enough to be fed by 2 pizzas. And so if we want to break things down into smaller pieces, like you said, you pull apart the headphones, or in an ideal case, they never get tied together in the first place. And then they can be managed as independent components. If you want to change an underlying requirement of this one piece, you can. And you don't have a dependency on other pieces for that same code. So you can evolve it as you need to, change underlying infrastructure, change software that you're using, upgrade versions, any of those types of things you can do because they're isolated pieces of software.
Man, I'm just, I'm going to compel you to learn to insert the word gnocchi into our video, so that way we get pizza, spaghetti, and gnocchi. It makes for a really good meal. So part of the things that you've talked about so far is, this is actually, to me, we're kind of evolving this analogy a little bit to the phone, right? A lot of us went from like a Palm or a BlackBerry over time, this older people anyway, and then we evolved into a smartphone. And one of the advantages is that, back in the day, you'd upgrade the entire operating system to get a fix or to get, some kind of cool new feature or game. But now we just add an app or delete an app, or you wake up, if you have an auto update, you wake up and all of a sudden your icons have changed on your Google Maps or your Apple Maps. So that feels like we're kind of the same topic, right? So that's kind of where it's going.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And you can, that's a perfect example in the sense that, there's core services that come with a phone now. But then there's all this variety of applications that can integrate with core services. Core services can be upgraded, like Maps, for example, or the APIs that provide map functionality. The map can be enhanced and upgraded, and the APIs can remain the same, other than those upgraded features can be added as new APIs. And the way that other features or apps, in this case, integrate together with that core service or integrate with each other is the exact same way that microservices work. They interact with APIs. You can upgrade them independently, and it just makes for a really nice, clean way to couple together application or to couple together services to make one application.
So I was many years ago, decades ago, I was sitting on the wing of a C-130. It was 4th of July. I was in Italy, Aviano Air Base, and I'm disconnecting an engine because we were supposed to be home in time, but we had an engine failure, had to change an engine. So I start taking apart the engine. There's these thing called cannon plugs. You ever heard of a cannon plug?
No, never heard of it.
All right. Use the Google and throw an image up there for the fine folks at home. So a cannon plug is basically an interface, if you will, to use the analogy, is a bunch of pins that you plug in and then you can screw on to the back of an engine. And the idea is you have multiples of these, and none of them fit with each other because you got a 19-year-old kid, who's putting an engine on a big airplane. So you want to make it kind of foolproof. So that's the way. Yeah, a little bit. You don't ever want to lose an engine. You get in trouble. So I feel like that interface. And we're going to use a lot of analogies here, right? You could actually take this into cars and car parts. You can take it to engine parts, but all of this is kind of interchangeable, where you can upgrade things, and you have common interfaces. So I like mechanical stuff, so that's why I threw that out there. I'm a child.
I like. Well, I mean, the cannon plug makes a lot of sense, which is taking sort of a function and separating it into discrete components that are separated from one another. I think of you pointed out a car. I like that idea as well, which is, you can change tires, upgrade tires and wheels, put on bigger ones, change seat fabric, upgrade the engine, add NOS, change components that maybe are old and tired and need to be updated with new architecture, we'll call it. You can do all of that independently. So I mean, it's the same. I mean, if the car is the application, each part is a microservices, and you can change them independently.
Did you put nitrous oxide on the minivan for Mrs. Burton?
Yeah, our Honda screams now, man. It's awesome.
That's a great thing. So we've done a lot of analogies. So let's break this down into a little bit more. Let's keep going down this technical path because people are probably tired of our stories by now. Just rant for a minute to say, you know, where this fits and what does it maybe mean to the people out there. You know, how does this fit into, you know, everything we're working with today?
Yeah, I mean, again, microservices, people think of it like a technology. It's not really a technology to learn. It's a software technique, basically. So, you know, when you think about microservices, it's typically compared to a monolith. And actually, there's sort of a continuum, which is one big, heavy block of code where everything is integrated versus, you know, these microservice, smaller pieces of code that integrate together in clean ways. It's a continuum, actually. So, you know, you could look at any number of applications and they might be somewhere on the continuum of being broken down into microservices versus being, you know, these big heavy packages.
So if there's a pendulum, right? This pendulum over here is monolith. The pendulum over here is microservices. Can you over rotate? Is it possible to over microservice?
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely over microservice, and you can break something down to the point where it's in these really small pieces and actually becomes more difficult to manage instead of easier to manage and evolve over time because you've made too many parts. So, you know, we don't want to err on either side, but, you know, sort of modern design takes it and breaks it down into smaller pieces. But then where it gets more interesting really is where you take a microservices architecture, which is typically implemented as containers, and then you manage the orchestration of those containers and those services so that you can sort of handle load and capacity and scale in a really dynamic and automated way. That we don't probably want to go down that path right now, but maybe a topic for another video.
Yeah, Marcus, you definitely threw out a couple new terms, containers, orchestration. I'm sure there's more there. So yeah, let's save those for another video. We have to stay employed, so let's keep the work going. But good job, man. Good, yeah, great. No one at work's gonna see this anyway, so it's okay.
Right.
All right. Thanks, Marcus. You rock, man.
All right. Thanks, you too. All right.
Thanks.
See you, man.
See you guys. Thanks.
So there you have it. Couldn't get any clearer than that. Do one thing, do it really well. As we finish and as we land now on this session, we talk about generations of ExtremeCloud IQ. And the first generation, the second generation, and on the screen, you can take a screenshot and see the different generations of ExtremeCloud IQ. But now we're at generation 4. Some of our competitors are just playing in the generation 2. It's like woohoo, we're already on generation 4. Containerization, microservices, Kubernetes, dynamic scalability, agnostic deployment. We're going to be talking about that as well in next week. So thank you for watching. I'll see you next week where we will build on the vision. What is Extreme's vision? We will start to look at the topic of agnostic. What does it mean to have an agnostic cloud? And also we'll start looking at the issue of security, which is a fantastic module. Thank you for watching. See you next week. Ciao.